When Erin and her boyfriend Max bought their first home, they weren't looking for anything fancy, just something old with character. The small Tudor-style house on the edge of town was perfect. Ivy on the brick, arched doorways, and a price that almost seemed too good to be true. Max fell in love with the original hardwood floors and vintage kitchen. Erin adored the built-in bookshelves and attic loft. It needed work, flaky paint, some moisture in the basement, but they both saw potential. On their second day in the house, while removing a cracked baseboard in the living room, Erin noticed something odd. A small piece of folded paper wedged deep into the wall behind the plaster. It was yellowed, like it had been there a long time. She unfolded it carefully. The writing was thick, scrawled in red marker. "Don't trust the man in the mirror." She let out a small laugh. "Max, check this out," she called. "We've got our own little haunted house note." Max read it and shrugged. Probably some bored kid messing around during renovations. People leave weird crap behind. But that night, Erin found herself staring at the antique hallway mirror. The house had come with it. It was too heavy to move, bolted into the wall across from their bedroom door. Its surface was warped slightly, the kind of old glass that made reflections shimmer subtly when you walked past. When she glanced into it on her way to bed, her reflection paused, just a beat too long, as if it had blinked a second too late. She didn't mention it. She figured it was her imagination, already spooked by the note. The next afternoon, Max started demo work in the dining room. They'd planned to knock down a non-load-bearing wall to open the space. As he hammered into the drywall, something fluttered out and landed near his boots, another folded note. This one was cleaner, like it hadn't been there long. The ink was fresh, red marker again. "He saw you read the first one." Erin froze when he showed her. "No way, that's been in the wall for years," she said, turning the paper over in her hands. It smells like ink." Max frowned. "I know, it's weird, right? You think someone snuck in?" They checked every door and window. Nothing broken, nothing out of place. Still, Erin insisted they install security cameras the next day. That night, Erin avoided the hallway mirror. She went to bed early, curled up with a book. But sometime after midnight, she woke with a start. The bedroom was cold, colder than it had ever been. Max was snoring softly beside her. Then she heard it, a soft, dragging sound from the hallway. She sat up, heart pounding, and stared at the bedroom door. It was cracked open slightly, just enough to see the mirror outside, and in the mirror's warped reflection, something moved, just barely. She stood, crept to the doorway, and peered out. Nothing there, but when she turned back toward the mirror, her reflection was smiling. She wasn't. She slammed the bedroom door shut and locked it. The next morning, Erin refused to go near the mirror. Max said he'd cover it up later that day, maybe just take it down altogether. He left for work early. Erin stayed behind to work remotely. She tried to focus, but something kept drawing her to the living room, specifically to the wall where they'd found the first note. Around lunchtime, she stood in front of the patched-over spot and tapped lightly. It sounded hollow. She grabbed a flashlight and a screwdriver, then knelt and began prying back the remaining plaster. Beneath the wood lath, she saw another note, red marker. Unfolding it felt like unsealing a curse. He can see through the glass now, any glass. She dropped it, heart racing. Every reflective surface in the house suddenly felt like a threat. The kitchen window, the microwave door, her phone screen. She grabbed a roll of duct tape and started covering everything. Mirrors, glass panels, even her laptop screen. By the time Max came home, Erin was frantic. "There's something in this house," she said. "Something that watches through the reflections. I think these notes are warnings." He looked around at the covered mirrors and taped appliances. "Okay, I think we're officially going stir-crazy." "I'm serious, Max." "I know you're scared, but think about it. Why would anyone write that kind of stuff and hide it in the walls unless they wanted to screw with people? This is probably some twisted prank left by the last owner." But the ink is fresh, she whispered. The paper's not even dusty. That night, Max insisted they sleep without the door locked. He tried to joke, to comfort her, but Erin barely slept. Around 3 a.m. she woke again. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses into your ears. She rolled over and saw the hallway light was on. She sat up. Max? He was gone. She slid out of bed, stepped into the hallway, and gasped. The hallway mirror was uncovered. Worse, it wasn't reflecting the hallway at all. Instead, it showed a dim, unfamiliar room, a space filled with rotting wallpaper and a red-tinted glow, and Max. He was standing inside the mirror, staring at her, eyes wide, mouth moving silently. She screamed. The next thing she knew, she was waking up on the floor. Morning light was pouring through the windows. Max was in bed, groggy. Why were you screaming? You were in the mirror, she said. I saw you, trapped.
He stared at her, confused. I've been here all night! I never got up!
Erin stumbled down the hallway. The mirror was covered again. She lifted the edge of the cloth, just a peek. Her own reflection stared back. Still. But when she turned to walk away, she heard it behind her, a faint tapping on the glass. She didn't look back. I was never the type to believe in signs or fate, so when I inherited my uncle's house in Minnesota, a place I hadn't visited since I was a kid, I thought of it as dumb luck. Free property. All I had to do was fix it up and sell. The house was old, gray siding, paint flaking off, roof that needed replacing, but inside, it was surprisingly intact. Musty, sure, quiet, too quiet. Like it had been holding its breath since my uncle died. The first night I stayed there, I heard something in the walls. Not rats, not creaking. This was softer, like shuffling. I told myself it was old wood settling. Every house does that, right? The second night, I was cleaning out the basement when I found the crawlspace door. It was wedged shut, almost like it hadn't been opened in decades. Took me 20 minutes to pry it loose. Inside was a low, narrow corridor of dirt and cobwebs, barely 3 feet tall. The air smelled like mildew and rust. I wasn't even going to go in until I spotted something strange at the far end. A stack of books. Crawling in, I reached the pile and realized they weren't books. They were journals. Dozens of them. Some rotted, some still readable. Most had names and dates scrawled on the front. I opened the first one. It wasn't my uncle's handwriting. The entry read, March 5th. I heard it breathing again last night. It waits until I'm alone. I told my sister, but she says I'm making it up. I tried to move out, but every time I pack, something goes missing. It doesn't want me to leave. I flipped through more pages, rambling, desperation, talk of something behind the walls. I opened a second journal. This one dated 1992, same style. It left me another note. This time it was inside the kitchen drawer, red ink. I thought it was just a dream, but it keeps telling me what not to do. The third journal chilled me to my bones. The handwriting matched my uncle's. It knows I found the others. It punished me. Took my voice in a dream, and when I woke up, I couldn't speak for hours. I boarded up the crawl space today. If anyone finds this, leave. Do not let it know you've read the notes. It can see through the paper. I dropped the book. That night I couldn't sleep. I heard the sounds again, shuffling, breathing, always just out of reach. Around 3 a.m., I heard a scratch at my bedroom wall. I turned on my phone flashlight and stared. A slit had formed in the wallpaper, a tear. I walked over, trembling, and peeled it back. Taped behind the wallboard was a small, folded note, like it was waiting for me. I opened it. Stop reading, it's watching you now. My heart thundered. I stood frozen for what felt like hours. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, Every gust of wind became a footstep or a whisper. The next day I packed my bags. I didn't care about the inheritance, didn't care about selling the place. But before I left, something compelled me. One last look in the crawl space. Stupid. The journals were gone, all of them. But something else was there now, a single sheet of paper. I picked it up. Red ink. You're not leaving, not until you write yours. The door to the crawl space slammed shut behind me. Pitch black. I screamed, slammed against the wall, kicked, punched, nothing. No one was there. And then, the dirt beneath me began to shift, like something was crawling underneath the crawl space floor. I don't remember how long I was in there. Hours? A day? At some point, the door creaked open by itself. I crawled out shaking, covered in dust and blood. My hands were scraped raw. When I made it upstairs, I found my phone smashed, my car keys gone, front door locked from the outside, and on the kitchen table, a journal, blank, a red marker beside it. I never wrote a single word. I left that night barefoot, running through the woods like a madman, hitchhiked to town. Cops checked the house, said there was nothing strange, no journals, no notes, no damage to the crawl space. But I know what I saw. Weeks passed. I moved in with my brother 3 states away. I started having dreams. Dreams where I'm in the crawl space again, but it stretches for miles. The breathing surrounds me. The walls pulse like lungs. Then one day, I opened my bedroom closet and found something taped to the inside wall.
A note.
Red ink. You still owe your pages. I sleep with the lights on now, and I haven't touched a pen since. Julia and Mark had been trying to have a baby for years. When they finally got the call, "We have a little girl for you," they cried in each other's arms. The adoption agency described the infant as healthy, quiet, gentle. The moment they brought her home, everything felt complete. They named her Lila. Their home was a 1920s colonial on a quiet suburban street. Charming, if a little outdated. Mark had been slowly renovating the place, refinishing floors, repainting ceilings, anything to keep busy during their long wait. The nursery was their favorite room. They painted the walls soft peach, filled it with plush toys, hung delicate paper stars from the ceiling. And then the crying started. Lila had barely cried in the orphanage, but at night in the nursery her screams pierced the walls. Julia tried everything, rocking her, feeding her, lullabies, white noise. Nothing worked. But strangely, when they carried Lila out of the room, she stopped instantly. Mark joked that the house was jealous. Julia didn't laugh. She had started hearing sounds during the day, light tapping from the far wall of the nursery. Once or twice, she thought she heard whispering when the baby monitor was on. And then, one afternoon while hanging a picture over the crib, the nail wouldn't go in. It hit something. Hollow. Curious, she pressed her ear to the wall. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch. Mark pried the section open with a crowbar. Inside the wall was a cavity the size of a shoebox. No insulation, just an old tin lunchbox rusted shut. They opened it together at the kitchen table. Inside were a handful of brittle papers tightly folded. The first was a letter, written in faded pencil. "If you're reading this, we are sorry. We didn't know it would keep coming. The first baby heard it too. He stopped sleeping, then he stopped waking up altogether. We thought it was the wind at first, but it whispers his name now. We tried to seal it in the wall. We failed." The second note was shorter, written shakily. "It lives behind the peach paint. It feeds on cries." Mark crumpled the letters and tossed them aside. Sick joke, someone messing with us. But Julia was pale. "Peach paint," she said, looking up at the baby monitor. Lila was sleeping, but her breathing was sharp, uneven. That night they slept with Lila in their room. She didn't cry once. The next morning, Julia went into the nursery alone. She stood in front of the crib, staring at the freshly patched wall. Then she noticed something new, a small slit in the paint. She leaned in. It wasn't a crack, it was a thin opening in the drywall, freshly cut. Taped behind it, barely visible, was another note, red marker this time. "Why did you open the wall again?" Julia stepped back, heart pounding, and she didn't tell Mark. She painted over the slit, sealed it tight. She even moved the crib to the opposite wall, but the crying returned the next night, worse than ever. Not just shrieking, wailing, like Lila was in pain. Julia ran in, scooped her up, but the air felt heavy. The wall was weeping. Tiny streaks of water, no, clear fluid, ran from a spot just above the crib. She touched it, sticky, almost like sap. The baby wouldn't stop screaming. They slept on the couch that night. Mark promised they'd move her nursery tomorrow. Julia agreed, but something in her was breaking. She stayed up late scrolling forums about haunted houses, old walls, energy imprints. At 3 a.m., something flickered on the baby monitor. Movement. The room was dark, the crib empty. But a shape stood by the open nursery closet, tall, slender, watching. She dropped the monitor, ran. When they reached the room, Lila was still in the crib, sleeping soundly. Nothing was out of place, except a folded note on the floor. This one wasn't behind the wall. It had been placed inside the room. Julia picked it up with trembling hands. "You should have let her cry. It liked the sound." Mark called a priest, a medium, anyone. One woman, an elderly psychic, refused to even enter the house. She stood on the porch, eyes closed, then turned pale and said, "There's a weeping spirit trapped here, not a ghost, an echo of something worse. You didn't invite it. It was always here. You simply woke it up again." They fled that night, moved in with Mark's mother across town. A week later, Julia returned once to gather more baby clothes. She found the nursery exactly as they left it, except the walls were bleeding. Thin lines of crimson dripped from the corner where the crib had stood. She turned to run, but froze. Taped to the inside of the door was one final note. Large, jagged writing, deep red ink. Or maybe not ink. "She belongs to the house now, and so do you."